stretched out for this one. Vocational discernment is what we're talking about today, just because I have plenty of thoughts about the topic. But just one of the things that has come to mind for me, and I hope that it blesses people. And I think this can apply both to like state of life vocational discernment, like single, married, religious, that kind of stuff, but also just like big life moves discernment, is this idea of freedom. Freedom is, I think, at the heart of discerning and living out a vocation, but I think it is also at the heart of what the trap that many people, myself included, fall into with vocational discernment is this false illusions of freedom that I think we can cling to and not want to let go of. And this is a place where we can't actually experience the great freedom that we were made for in living out our vocation. Because here's the thing, that your vocation, your especially state of life vocation, is the place that the Lord has prepared for you to fully experience freedom to love. That we are given this freedom. I think freedom is like one of the highest values we can strive for. In America, we talk about freedom all the time. Freedom is like the highest value. But it's something that when we talk about freedom, it's not just like general freedom. It's freedom for something. Like we've been given the gift of free will by God. Like God chooses for us to have freedom in order that we can love him. The reason that free will exists is because if we were just coerced or forced to have faith, it wouldn't be a gift of love. If we were just automatically had belief in God, then it couldn't be a free act of our will. And by that free act of our will, we can choose to love, because to love is to choose. We'll come back to that. The trap that we fall into, and we see a lot in vocational discernment, but we see a lot in just like making big life choices, is you've got all these options, and in order to maintain my freedom, I want to keep my options open. So that then I am free to choose whatever I want. But the reality is that if you don't choose anything, then you have the least amount of freedom, because you can't love anything, because you haven't chosen anything. You may have all your options open to you, but that's a false illusion of freedom, because by not actually choosing any of those options and just saying, I could choose any of them, you can't actually love any of them until you choose one of them. So this is how it plays out in like dating relationships, for example. So I am just, single man who is looking to date a woman to end up marrying someone, whatever. Okay. So if you are just sitting here and you don't date anyone, but you look around at all the women and just you find someone that you're interested in and you don't date them, you're holding on to a false illusion of freedom, because you can't actually love that person until you take an active step to pursue and choose that person. There's this fear of taking a step forward to like actually pursue someone, like a person in dating, because then you fear that you lose the other options. You fear that you're going to lose your freedom because you're going to become attached to one thing. But it's actually in that attachment, it's in that choosing, that we go down the path towards greater freedom. So this looks like in a dating relationship and the stages of dating. So you find someone that you're interested in and you have zero freedom to love them until you make an active choice to move towards pursuing that person. So I asked the woman on the date, and then we go on a date, and now there is a greater freedom to pursue. But of course, there's not a greater freedom to, experience more affection, romantic relationship, intimacy, and all these kind of things, because we've just met. We're just going on a first date. There's not really even freedom to start talking about like deeper things until we've gone through this season of we're just going on dates. And then we make this relationship more exclusive by defining the relationship, where we say we are now boyfriend and girlfriend and we are just dating each other. So now the fear of this person could date anyone and I'm just going on dates with them, there's zero exclusivity. We've now taken away some of that fear of, okay, she's not dating anyone else, and we now have made each other, we've chosen to be exclusive with each other. So now we each have greater freedom to actively pursue the other person and to figure out and have deeper conversations about, is this going to work? And what do you like? What do I like? We have greater freedom to love each other because we've now become more exclusive. We've attached to each other. We've chosen the other, and we've said no to all the other options in some way. But of course, that's not permanent, and you could break up at any point. There's been no real promises made. So now you're exclusive for a season until you get to the point where you say, I want to choose this person even more. So then the man gets down on one knee and he proposes and says, will you marry me? He makes this choice to become even more exclusive with the person. A promise that says, I want to be with just you forever. At this point, it becomes even more exclusive. And they haven't made vows before God or anything. There hasn't been any lasting sacramental promise and covenant made yet. But it's this deeper exclusivity. It's this deeper choosing. It's this moment where I have now become even more detached from, like, we could have broken up at some point. I could have chosen to do this with someone else. But no, you're the person who I chose to go deeper with. And I've become even more exclusive. And I've said no to all the other people. And now I have a greater freedom to love this person deeply because we've said we're going to get married. So now I have a greater freedom to start talking about, like, what could our life look like as married people? What's our wedding going to look like? And what's our house going to look like, and family and all these different things. And to care about each other even more deeply because we've chosen each other more. There's less fear that this isn't going to work out. So we can give of ourselves more. We can open ourselves up more to the other and receive love from the other and give love to the other. And of course, we get after the engagement to marriage, where there's this full freedom to love because I have now entered into a covenant binding relationship with the other. I have fully and completely said no to everyone else except this one person. And that, to the world, probably looks like, into our false illusions of freedom, like I've become chained down to only one thing, and I've fully lost my freedom, in a sense, to love the other people. But the reality is, if this is my vocation, and I'm made to love this person, then I have now experienced the fullest freedom to love the person that I was made to love. And this is actually what my heart was made for in the fulfillment of my vocation, where I can now fully give myself to the other person, romantically, in intimacy, in growing a family, in living life, and completely sharing life together, because now the two have become one. I can now fully love this person because I've fully detached, I've fully become exclusive, I've fully chosen this person. Because when we choose, we're more free to love the thing that we choose. So of course, then this also applies to discerning a religious vocation, state of life vocations. If I'm thinking, like, maybe I'm called to be a priest or religious or something, then I can't actually love the Lord and experience this gift of my vocation. There's no freedom in it until I actually take an active step towards pursuing it, to where I reach out to a vocations director, to where I start having conversations and get maybe an application to start filling out. And then I fill out the application and turn in the application. There's some sense in me that says, I'm actively doing this now. In sending in an application to seminary or to a religious community, then I've now said no to the idea of dating someone. And then when maybe I'm accepted to a religious community and I say yes, then I have now said no to the possibility of, like, I'm not discerning dating or marriage anymore. And I'm now more fully free. I don't even have to think about it. There's no like one foot in each door. There's just a yes. There's a greater yes that has been said because I've chosen the thing. And now I can more fully love the thing that I have chosen because there's no going back and forth in my head. There's no what ifs because I've devoted myself to this thing. But of course, there's still not really like this is why vows are made. This is why promises are made as you go along, again, in the path of a religious vocation, in seminary, and whatever it is. As the years go on, you make a more deeper promise to the Lord, to the community, to the diocese, to whoever. And that allows one to be more free to live out their vocation because they've made the choice. That once someone is ordained, a man is ordained a deacon, and he makes the vow of celibacy, he has now become more fully free, that he doesn't have to consider, well, what if I was married? What if this isn't what I was called to? Because now he said yes. And now he's made a promise before the Lord that I will love you, Lord, and I will love your church that you've given to me in this vocation. And now I'm more fully free to offer myself to the Lord, offer myself to the church, because I've said no to the other options, which looks like, to my illusions of freedom, like I've given up my freedom to love the other things, but I've chosen this one thing to love, and to love deeply. And by choosing that versus this, I can now love this thing more. And I think the place that this needs to begin for us, to be able to properly do this in discerning our vocation, to be able to trust the Lord enough with what he presents to us and the road that he takes us on, is in our personal walk of discipleship, in our life of faith, and in our commitment to Jesus. Because, you in your faith development journey, there's some point where it's kind of like Jesus comes and he pursues us. Jesus comes and he pursues me with his love. And he says, would you follow me? And I say, well, I don't really know. Here's like a little bit of my heart. And because I don't want to lose my freedom for whatever other options there might be. There might be something better out there. The party life, drinking, sex, drugs might become more alluring to me. Or I might have a relationship down the line that this wouldn't really mesh with. So I want to keep my options open. I'm only going to give you a little bit of my heart. And the Lord keeps pursuing. And he keeps going deeper. And he invites us deeper and says, I want it to just be us. I don't want you to be, dating other gods or thinking about other gods, whatever gods, money, sex, drink, productivity, school, whatever it might be. He says, I want it just to be me. And for me to then say, okay, Lord, here's a little bit more of my heart. I'm going to become a little bit more exclusive with you. That my heart and my faith and my belief and my life and my love, I'm going to give a little bit more of it to you. And I'm more free then to love the Lord because I've said no to the other things in my life. And then the Lord, he moves us to this place of betrothal. This betrothal scene where the Lord comes to us and he says, I want to give you spousal love. That God so loved the world that he would give his only son to form a covenant with us. That he would place his love on our hearts and form this covenant union with us that he does throughout the Old Testament. He makes covenants with his people. And then Jesus comes. In the Last Supper, he says, this is my body, this is my blood, the blood of the new and eternal covenant which we poured out for you. And he offers us this covenant and says, I want it just to be you and me. I want you to have no other gods, no other options. I am choosing you. Would you choose me back in love? And for us to be able to say and to get to that point where the God of the universe comes to us as Jesus, the bridegroom, and makes the church his bride, makes me, makes you his bride. And for us to say yes to spousal love, intimate and exclusive love with Jesus Christ, where we say he's my only one. He's the only one I'll give my love and affection, my honor, my praise, my worship to. He's the only one and true God. At that point, when I give all of my heart to Jesus, I have full freedom. Because I've said no to all the other things that the world has to offer me. And that's fine. That's good. It's actually the place that we're meant to be, because if our hearts are divided, then we can't fully love. We have to choose, because this is what God does for us. He comes and he calls us by name, and he chooses. He chose Mary to be the mother of his son. He chose Joseph to be the foster father of his son. He chose Moses and Abraham and David and Jacob and Isaac and all the people throughout the Bible. God is a God who chooses, and to choose is to love. To love for us is to choose. This is where we find fullness of freedom. Discerning our vocation, making big life choices. At some point, my friend, to make a choice. To say no to the other things and to just start moving towards something. And the Lord will guide us. The Lord knows what's in store for us better than we do. So can we trust him enough to just give him our hearts, to move towards something, to choose something? Because it's in choosing In saying no to some things and giving a yes to other things, this is where we can more fully love. This is where we experience real freedom. Not this illusion of freedom that to keep my options open, but to start getting rid of some options and to pick one thing to choose. This is where we find the full freedom to love.